Well, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to see so many members of the public here. It's good to know we're getting the message out there to you all. I'd like to welcome you all here, as well as members of the staff and others that are online. We've already started the discussions this morning with the karakia, so we can move on to the next item, which is apologies. Everyone's here, so one assumes there are no apologies. Can I ask, are there any conflicts of interest from anyone? Take that as no conflicts of interest. And we'll now hand over to Nick Carroll to speak, and Hadley to speak about the Head Start proposal, options and our priorities. Welcome, Nick. Good to see you here.
Good morning, Your Worship and councillors. The purpose of today's meeting is twofold. The first is to clarify the options that you want us to go away and do some further work on. And then secondly, to clarify for us the priorities that you see as important for our community going forward. So that when we're comparing those different options, we're looking at it with not only a government lens in terms of their objectives, but also from a Taupō First perspective as well. To assist us to sort of work through the conversation, we've got a slideshow which is going to cover 4 key elements today. And I've got my faithful assistant here, Hadley, who's going to work through the feedback that we've had so far from the community and from the discussions that we've had with our iwi partners. I'll briefly talk through some of the options that are being floated out there in the public in terms of other councils and their perspective and how that could potentially impact us. Then we'll briefly touch on the assessment criteria that we've got in the paper for you, and then finish having a conversation about the options that we've got as we perceive them on the table for further investigation. As we sort of finish each of those points, we'll just pause in the slideshow and take some questions. Otherwise, we'll all lose track of the questions by the time we get to the end. But if we could just, if we perhaps just do it in chunks, that would make it a lot more manageable for us as well. So without any further ado, I'll hand it over to Hadley.
Perfect, thanks Nick. Good morning, Your Worship and councillors. So as Nick said, this is just an opportunity to outline some of the feedback that we've received from the community and our iwi partners. So as you're all aware, we undertook a community survey a week or two ago. That lasted for nearly 12 days and we got a lot of feedback from our community through that process. So just to cover off a bit of an overview of that, our engagement team delivered 6 in-person engagement events across the district with nearly 100 people attending that. We did a range of communications across newspaper, radio and digital advertising to let our community know about the survey. Our website received a number of page views, quite a high number, and it was the highest number for the month for that particular part of our website. We did a lot of social media, which also got a lot of attention from our community with nearly 60,000 views on our Facebook posts. And then that last number being 1,113 responses to the survey, which is a pretty significant response given the timeframes that we were working under. So I guess I'll work through some of the feedback themes that we received through both the comments from the community and also the questions, and I'll show you some graphs as well of some of those responses. I guess in terms of some overall themes, there was a fair bit of confusion from our community around the rationale and the purpose for amalgamation, I guess also at the speed at which it's been done. I think it's important to clarify that this is not a local choice around that speed, that's been driven on us or to us, or done to us by central government. The general mood was caution and concern around protecting the district's local identity. Some of the responses obviously supported reform in principle, mainly for the potential efficiencies that could be gained, the reduced duplication and stronger regional capability, but then also a number of respondents were sceptical that amalgamation would actually deliver lower cost, better services or improved accountability. And a recurring theme was around TDC not being rushed into any arrangement without clear evidence of the benefits, and that incredibly important to protect the local voice, assets, finances, environment, identity and community relationships. First question we asked in the survey was, had people heard of the government wanting to do this reform? I think by the stage that people were actually filling in the survey, they obviously had heard of it, but I guess it just gave an indication that certainly the people that were involved understood that this was underway. The second question we asked was around some priorities, and I guess this is feeding into further along in the presentation that Nick will talk about later, but it was just an opportunity to understand what some of the priorities were for our community. You can see that actually the vast majority were either very important or somewhat important when you combine those, but at the top there in terms of the respondents who said most very important was around financial sustainability, around levels of debt, investment in assets, including infrastructure, affordable rates, quality services, amenities and infrastructure. And those were the key things that I guess came out on top. When we looked into some of the commentary behind that, like I said, there was little variance between the priorities, with all 8 scoring highly as most important or somewhat important, but that financial sustainability, debt protection, affordability for rates was a theme that did come through fairly strongly. And then I guess to my earlier point around protecting that local identity and character. So any future structure should protect our district's unique local character, lifestyle, amenity, and also noted in there to our reputation as a tourism destination. Third question was around the proposal having to work with at least one other council, and this showed that the preference from the majority was around teaming up with a neighbour council to put a proposal in. The second one was around a sub-regional unitary authority. So similar to option 1, but would be smaller councils made up of 2 or 3 councils. The third one was joining a proposal to create a regional unitary authority. So that is a council that would be across a whole region made up of several councils. And then the last point with just 6% was waiting for central government to decide who will be merged with. And in the government's documentation, that's known as the backstop process. So you can see that did receive the lowest number of responses from the community. We then asked a question around a preference in terms of the community's views around if we were to work with another council, who should that be? A number of respondents broadly talked around councils within the wider Waikato region. Second one was around Rotorua Lakes. Third, interestingly, was a preference for Taupō District to remain as the status quo. I guess that was the element of the government forcing this on us, and we don't necessarily want it, so stay as you are. And then South Waikato was the third. I would point out that Auckland also received 10. So I'm not sure. Obviously, some of our community have an affinity to Auckland and would like to see us join up with Auckland. I'm not sure if that's quite doable, but we'll take that information on board. And then in terms of, we just always try and check where our community are responding from. And you can see, obviously, the majority of respondents came from the Taupo ward, which also includes Kinloch. We've also had a number of interactions with our iwi partners throughout this process, or since this process has been underway. So the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Julie have had a range of individual hui with our iwi partners. We've also had a couple of collective hui where we've brought our iwi partners together to have conversations with them to keep them up to speed with what is happening with the Head Start process. And so far, and obviously there's still a wee way to go, but in terms of the feedback we've received so far is that some of those things, and there's general alignment on these, is upholding existing treaty settlement agreements, arrangements and obligations. Second point is around protecting the environment, particularly the health and wellbeing of the waterways, including Lake Taupō and the Waikato River. Iwi representation as part of the design of governance and decision-making structures for new unitary authorities to enable iwi participation in that decision-making process. And then I guess when considering some of the options, ensuring that we're prioritising the waterways, the catchment and the broader rohi of the Taupō District. So that's a quick overview of the survey results and the community feedback and our iwi partners' feedback. Obviously, we have also provided elected members with the full verbatim responses from all of the community feedback that we got, which was near 140 pages of information for you that can form part of your decision-making processes.
Thank you, Hadley. Are there any questions of Hadley at this stage? Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that, Hadley. It was quite good to read through a lot of the survey answers and see what was going on and getting that feedback from the community. What I like about surveys actually is that we ask questions and we often get feedback back that's not necessarily related to the questions that we're asking. I'm just wondering if you saw any recurring themes of other feedback throughout the survey.
Well, no, we were focused obviously on the specific questions that we asked, so those are the ones that we've identified and provided a summary of here. But we always do take other information on board, so if the community raises other work that Council has underway, we do ensure that we do take note of that, but our priority was providing you with feedback related to the Head Start process.
Any other questions? If not, Nick, I think the microphone is yours.
Thanks, Hadley.
Thank you, Hadley.
Look, I'll rush through this next section reasonably quickly. It's important that we are cognizant of the conversations that other councils are having around our region and our neighbouring regions, partly because these have the potential to impact us. An example is if Hamilton and Waikato, for example, tended to do something that would take a lot of the population from the Waikato region and put them into one organisation, which would then potentially impact sort of cross-subsidisation issues across the balance of the region. The other thing is that as people's ideas sort of evolve over probably the next 3 weeks, there may well be opportunities which emerge that we haven't thought of at this point. So it's good for us to sort of remain agile enough to be able to respond to those. So to give you a sense of what's sort of happening out there in terms of conversations, we've got six examples up here. The first talks about the Waikato catchment, or the Waikato catchments, I should say, because the Waikato region's actually divided into multiple catchments. While much of it's focused on the Waikato and the Waipa rivers, which converge, there are other catchments both out to the east and along the west coast, which are also managed by the Regional Council. The government in its direction has said that catchment management and the delivery of regional services, which are very catchment focused, is very important in terms of any proposal. So certainly some of the proposals are looking at alignment of council boundaries more along catchment boundaries than they've traditionally been. The second one talks about provincial unitary authority. There's been some discussion about Hamilton and some of the surrounding urban areas like Cambridge and Ngaruawahia being joined together to form sort of a really large urban area, and then the balance of the region could be divided up into some sort of collection of regional, provincial style councils with a real rural focus. The third one along is Waikato Waters. So you'll all be well aware that over the recent couple of years we've been having conversations as a sector about how our three waters services are managed, and we've seen a number of councils have divested those into new water organisations. So certainly there are conversations taking place around whether new council boundaries should align with those water service delivery entities. Rotorua and South Waikato have been out in the public talking about an option that potentially involves us. So that's that first one sitting up there, and then that middle one, Waikato River Catchment Authority, again picks up on that idea of utilising catchments. And then the last one is the Waikato Unitary Authority. So that pulls together all of the councils. Now, when you reflect on some of the feedback that Hadley's just talked us through in terms of the community, you're definitely seeing a leaning, I would suggest, from the community for smaller being better, which sort of flies in the face of that single Waikato Unitary Authority. The reason that most councils have still got that on the books for investigation is because that's the government's preferred option. They've been very clear through their proposals, their policy documents to this point, that they see real value in looking at single Waikato, a single regional unitary authority, in our case for the Waikato. So that just gives you a flavour for the sorts of options that are being investigated. As far as I'm aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, but no one that I'm aware of has settled on a final proposal other than potentially Waitomo and Otrahonga, which came out quite early and said that they were prepared to work together and would be submitting a proposal as partners. I'll pause there, just in case there are any questions.
Has that
Councillor
changed?
Leonard,
Sorry,
you have a
thank you
question?
through the chair. Has that position changed at all? Like, there were a number of people that didn't want to have a conversation initially. Are they still?
My
Don't know.
understanding is they're still pursuing that proposal, but I understand there are also conversations going on across the region that also involve those two councils.
Just perhaps
Councillor.
through there, perhaps I can
Taylor.
add some clarity to that. They are reasonably firm in that view. However, the Mayor and I did travel to Tikawiti and met with both mayors of Waitomo and Otrahonga, and they were open to the conversation. So I could say the door is not closed, although they've had a council resolution to the effect of the two joining together by themselves. They're very open to a proposal from us.
Yeah, so Nick, I'm probably just reiterating what you said, but these are options that we are named in, they're not our options. So they are options that are being explored by other councils, and they are going through the same process as us, Councillor Leonard. So these are ones that they are seeking feedback on, or they're being public about ones that they're investigating. So that's slightly different than what the Deputy Mayor spoke to, but just reiterating, because when we get to the report, there is reference to us potentially having to investigate other options that we're being named in. Thanks for that, Nick.
Right, the next part of the slide. Sorry, question.
Councillor Foreman.
Chair. Sorry, have any councils, how many other councils are on the same time frame as us for making decisions? Do you know that?
So yes, so through you, Your Worship, yes, we're all about the same time frame. So as we get to the end of this presentation, there's a couple of slides which make it clear to members of the public or those that are on listening into this meeting, clear about the timeframes in which we are looking to put a council paper and meeting together at the end of this month, so 21st of July. Most councils across the Waikato and Bay of Plenty are between the 21st of July and the end of July for decision making. So more than aware that we need to align in terms of those timeframes too.
Okay, the next part of the slideshow talks about criteria, and that's one of the key decisions that we're looking for from you today. So just a reminder, the government has started this process. It's a government-driven process, and as part of that, they've got 5 key criteria that they have said they will be using to judge success. So just a reminder, in September, the Cabinet will be meeting, looking at the proposals that have been submitted and making decisions about which proposals will proceed. The suggestion is to be a successful proposal and to be supported by Cabinet, you're going to have to deliver reasonably strongly on all 5 of these criteria. Now, they have made it clear that there will inevitably be some trade-offs. The classic is if you want to achieve economies of scale, that can create some tension around maintaining a local voice. The more complex the arrangement you have, the more challenging it can be in terms of delivery. But that's certainly the 5 criteria that we'll be using to assess any proposal that we put forward. On top of that, we also want to think about what's important to our community. And there are kind of two arms to that. The first is the financial analysis that we'll need to do, and then there's the non-financial analysis. And the financial analysis is incredibly complicated. You'll be well aware that councils are big financial beasts with a lot of different financial configurations. No two councils are exactly the same. Some might have high debt because they're in a large growth cycle. They might have high debt because they've been investing heavily in new infrastructure to help their community proceed forward. Other councils might be in low debt scenarios because they've not had much growth and they've been running infrastructure down or not funding depreciation. So there are a whole lot of different criteria that we're going to have a look at. What we're also going to do is have a look at some of the less tangible aspects, which we've sort of classed as our non-financial assessment criteria. Things like what could representation look like? How will our iwi treaty settlement arrangements best be reflected in different sorts of arrangements? What we will find, I suspect, is there are no hard and fast results here. This is not going to be this is wrong and this is right. This will be shades of grey. And as a result, while we'll try and provide some quantification around some of these assessment criteria, a lot of it's going to come down to judgment. And what we will see, I expect, when we get to decision making, is that there will be different values placed on each of these criteria by you as individuals and collectively as a council. For some of you, meeting our urban growth needs might be a much higher priority than protecting the environment, or vice versa. So what we intend to do is provide you as much information, and we will quantify it where we can, but this is about creating a narrative around how all of these different criteria come together. And that's why you've got quite a long list there, because what we're looking at is a very complex decision where there are a lot of potential outcomes, not only in the short term, but also in the long term, that you need to think about when we're proposing potentially a solution going forward. I'll pause at that point.
Are there any questions? Councillor Greenslow.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you very much, Nick. Apart from the obvious that's come through in the survey about finances and debt levels and all that sort of thing, one of the things that's come through to me from the community has been about representation. And are you aware at all whether the government has got any idea of a standardised model across New Zealand, for instance, like community boards? Auckland's got local boards. We've got our Councillor Connect. Is there any feedback at all on what local representation might look like in the brave new world?
I suspect there's a tension here in the government's guidance documents, which they've released, and they're on the DIA's website, talk about any outline proposal discussing what arrangements from a governance and a representation perspective might be favoured, and whether there is the need for any sort of bespoke arrangements to give effect to those. So that suggests on the face of it that the government is open to looking at alternative arrangements that might not be supported by the Local Government Act as it's currently drafted. I think the challenge there for the government going forward is they don't necessarily want to create bespoke arrangements right across the entire country. That can lead to some real challenges and inefficiencies. So that will be something that they will need to try and resolve as they look at rolling out legislation to put Head Start proposals into place. But on the face of it, there is the indication that they are at least open at this stage to looking at different arrangements for representation.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Just on that note, would you be able to explain to us the difference between community boards and local boards? And then my second sort of follow-up question to that is then, when we put in our proposal, are we ensuring in our proposal that we are putting in that we want to have community boards or local boards, and will we then detail how those boards will look?
So I'll take the second question first. The proposal will need to talk about what we expect to see in terms of representation. The government has said they don't need to see all the details when we submit in August. The idea is that between a decision by Cabinet in September and then in March 27 when final proposals are due, that during that period you would work up exactly what new representation would look like in terms of the layers of councils and community boards or local boards or representation groups, and how ward systems might operate, for example. So detail will come later. And I've talked so much I've forgotten the first question. What was that again, sir?
Just a quick explanation, for, especially for the public, the difference between local boards and community boards and what Auckland has after their amalgamation.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so community boards are provided for as a layer of governance under the Local Government Act 2002 as it currently stands. And they're a mechanism to enable local communities to have some influence on the decisions that impact them and really only them and their community. They also have the ability to act as an advocacy group up to council, sort of representing the things that are really important to their community when council's making decisions on plans like the long-term plan and those big investment decisions. The local boards fell out of specific legislation that was put in place when the Auckland amalgamation was undertaken. And the local boards were an attempt to create a level of local decision making that was probably at a higher level than what we've traditionally seen with community boards. I think a number of the councils who are looking at different amalgamation arrangements are looking at that Auckland model and thinking about how local boards might apply at, say, at a district scale. One of the challenges that we need to get our heads around in terms of formulating a proposal with other partners is what level of decision making appropriately sits at, say, a unitary council level versus a community board or a local board level, or maybe both layers. And I think that that's going to be one of the key decisions that will help inform any analysis of that sort of wider Waikato unitary model, where it involves all of the councils across the region. Trying to understand how arrangements and delegations could be managed through that is going to be one of the key assessment criteria.
Councillor Rankin.
I was on a local board in Auckland, dramatically different than a community board.
Yeah.
Big budgets, big decision making. The councillors did the strategy and we made local decisions and we were given a lot of power. It didn't work like that. Just a warning, it didn't work like that. And I mean, the councillors did not just do the strategy, they made big decisions for us, and the competition to get resources was massive. So we shouldn't kid ourselves that it's a lovely new system that works very well, because it certainly didn't when I was part of it.
Yeah, I would agree. Financial delegations are absolutely key. If you hold the purse strings, then you have the power to make things happen on the ground. And if you don't hold the purse strings, then you're largely in an advocacy role. You know, and I think that's the challenge. If we look at different arrangements going forward, how do you manage that balance between the financial decision making at different levels in any representation model?
Could I just take the opportunity, Councillor Rankin, very good question. I was keen to hear that, but we are in question time. We'll be having the debate following this. So, Councillor Cameron.
That may have answered my question, because I was about to ask that, because my understanding of community boards are that they're largely advisory and not decision making. So there is the option to be able to put some delegation and decision making at that level.
Yes.
Thank you, Nick. Please
Right.
carry on.
So let's have a quick talk about the 4 options which are sitting in the paper before you today. And the reason you've got 4 rather than 44 or 64 or 144 is because we've got a very short window in which to make a decision on the 21st of July. It will get here very fast. That means we need to be quite targeted in terms of our energy and our focus. So that we can present, hopefully to you, some options which are actually feasible. Bearing in mind, to be feasible, we need to have the support of at least one other council to be able to put in a proposal. Individual councils can't do that. And then if we're looking at a proposal that involves a number of different councils, we've got to either have a majority of the councils who are directly affected, or a majority of the population in that area that is directly affected. So this is not something we're just going to run off and do by ourselves. It's something that we need to do with council partners in some shape or form. Apologies. Actually, I'm just going to skip over this. I've got the same series of maps towards the back end of this presentation, but the maps are bigger, so hopefully we'll be able to read that writing a little easier.
Nick, I'm sorry for jumping in because you're doing an awesome presentation. I think one thing we covered off in the first workshop with council and members of the public was the cabinet paper talks about between 1 and 3 unitary authorities per region. So definitely the government's message is around bigger rather than smaller, but taking on board the community feedback, which is smaller rather than bigger. So I guess that was just a sort of a context that might be helpful as we start diving into what the council report's got and why.
Okay, so option 1 is the one that we've talked about a little bit already, which is this idea of the whole of the Waikato. So all of the territorial authorities which currently sit in the Waikato would be combined together to form one unitary authority. And there we are, you can see sitting at the bottom end of the region. That is a big land area with a lot of organisations that would need to come together. It's probably the most complex region in the country, and that's why the government, as the chief executive has noted, has said that in really big complex regions they are open to the idea of 2, max 3 sub-regional unitary authorities. So the second option has the ability to flex. So we've got us in the middle, and then the potential for Rotorua and South Waikato to the north, and then Ruapehu to the south. And the idea when we're looking at this option is that we consider what all 4 would look like together, or some combination thereof. And that might be because as we evolve those conversations with the other councils, it may become apparent that one partner doesn't want to work with us, or would not be a good fit working with us going forward. So we want to leave the option open to be able to flex with that. Option 3 has a distinctly sort of king country feel to it. So it picks up South Waikato to the north of us, and then Otahonga and Waitomo, and then again Ruapehu to the south. It's a very substantial land area which has quite different dynamics to the previous option, which brings in Rotorua, which is a largely urbanised district. So different flavours, and the benefit of assessing these is you will get a different sense of the advantages and disadvantages of going with councils who have got a more rural focus versus an urban focus. There will also be very significant differences when it comes to the delivery of regional council services. It's probably not something I've dwelt on too greatly with you, but we tend to think about the delivery of our services that we're used to, our water pipes, our roads, our reserves, building consent, dog control. Those are the things that we deliver for our community. This new unitary authority or authorities will also have to deliver the regional council services, flood management, pest control, Indigenous biodiversity enhancement, public transport, integrated transport across the region. So there's a whole new set of functions that we also need to think about delivering when we're thinking about geographic areas and population sizes and what's able to be delivered cost effectively. And then the fourth option is backstop. So just to be very clear, the government has said Head Start is voluntary, so you can choose to put in a proposal. They've said if you don't put in a proposal, then they will mandate a set of amalgamations that will happen in the subsequent 3 years. We don't know what that process looks like. We don't know whether we'll have any chance to influence that process. We don't know the exact timing of that process. So there's a lot of unknowns around what does backstop look like. And that's one of the challenges that I think councils across the region are facing. Do you push forward through Head Start, where you have a degree of control and you know what you're working with, or do you hold back and work through the backstop process? From the government's perspective, they've been very clear that territorial authorities will cease to exist and regional councils will cease to exist, and we will just have a set of unitary councils across the country. So the idea that Taupō District Council could just keep on being Taupō District Council forever is not, according to the government, is not a reality in terms of their reform process.
Thank you, Nick. Councillor Delator, you have a question?
Thank you. Yeah, and I guess to your last point, Nick, I just wonder if it would be clearer to the public if we, using this map, we put a whole lot of question marks around those other councils, because at the moment this map sort of represents that Taupō as a backstop could remain still as Taupō, like the representation of that map. Whereas, yeah, I think we just need to do everything we can to make it really clear that the backstop proposal means we would be left with whatever central government felt was best for us. So, yeah, not sure how we represent that in the map, but at the moment I think that is a little misrepresents what backstop might look like for us, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Nick, I should just probably point out that the option B is actually option 3. We've got numerical ones on the, just so everyone's clear on that. Who am I missing out on? Oh, Councillor Leonard.
Through the chair, just in relation to waters, Nick, so I understand this would be what's left. We've been allowed to keep our waters in-house. Are there any other councils within the proposed potential relationships that you've mentioned that have kept their waters in-house, or are we the only entity that have done that?
Ooh, I'll hand that one over to Julie.
So Rotorua at the moment is working with the Eastern Bay of Plenty, so they still have waters in-house. Ruapehu likewise still has waters in-house, but is working through a process. So,
thank you.
And across the Waikato, obviously, we're the last council.
Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, look, I just want to point out my understanding. There might be a question in it, but it's my understanding while we're on the subject of what we're calling backstop, and although I do like the idea of smashing up this place and starting again, I mean, I'm not convinced amalgamating with others will achieve the results the government or us want. Look, one matter I think deserves consideration, and I don't think we've properly put it to the community, is the alternative statutory process under Part 3 of the Local Government Act. This is how the law stands currently, as opposed to what the government is putting out they want. As the legislation currently stands, and as I understand, just recently talking to Councillor Lee of Rotorua actually, is what they are
Councillor Campbell,
seriously
this is
considering.
question time. Have you got a question?
Well, I'm putting out my understanding, an alternative option which involves them, Rotorua, or us, becoming a standalone unitary authority, and that's actually an option that they are considering going through Part 3 of the Local Government Act. And this is my understanding, that this is an existing legal pathway for local government, whereas the Head Start process still requires enabling legislation that is yet to surface. Look, I'm not advocating for one pathway over the other, but I think that actually is a reasonably
So, Councillor
practicable
Campbell,
option.
we are
to
pressed for
follow.
time. Can we have the question for Nick?
Well, my point is simply that there is an existing statutory pathway under Part 3 of the Local Government Act to possibly follow before we commit ourselves to Head Start. And
So,
we
Councillor Campbell,
need to
can we have the question? That's,
well,
what is the question?
I'm pointing out something.
Yeah, but we're in question time.
Oh, right,
We're not
well-
in debate yet.
Is that your understanding, Nick?
Thank
do you
you.
agree that that is a reasonably practicable option? Do you agree that is a reasonably practicable option as far as you understand it?
So I'll jump in. Government has released the Head Start process because they were unsatisfied with the process that existed in the current Local Government Act for change, is my understanding of government policy. I feel like that's possibly something you can talk about through debate, and we're simply pointing out what government has asked us to investigate.
Yes, Your Worship, I've got a feeling that I'm going to get the same rap over the knuckles because actually I think it comes under debate because my question is about the waters, and Nick, when we look at the waters, apart from the Waikato option, which we are aligned to Waikato Waters in terms of our procurement, outside of that, all of the other councils are all off in other water arrangements, aren't they?
Yeah, I think the reality is that once the amalgamation processes take place, there will probably be a reassessment of those different water entities and where are their boundaries and who sits with who. I think that's probably an inevitable reality. But at this point, that's not driving the decision making around amalgamations. In fact, the guidance documents from the Department of Internal Affairs have been very quiet on that front. I think there's been an assumption that the water services are like another utility. They're being provided by this organisation over here, and we don't have to stress about them when we're talking about the delivery of the other services that a unitary would.
Yes, because from what I'm looking at, the various other options outside of Waikato, we're going to have one authority that's going to have multiple water services in the one authority, which it doesn't seem sensible, no.
Councillor Griesler, we are in question time. Have you a question? Anyway, Councillor Mananui.
Hey Nick, a little bit of crystal ball gazing question here, but I think important just for our community to have an understanding of the two larger scale options, Waikato and the option 2, I think, with Rotorua. From a sort of representation perspective, what would be like? What would that look like as far as the council goes? Certainly, Waikato would imagine a council of 12, 15, where we potentially have one representative. Do you have a little bit of a view, I guess, was my question, Nick?
I'll start with a disclaimer, in that there's a lot of work still being done to understand what that would look like, and there's an obvious tension there between sort of representation and population. You think of the Waikato region, we've got a lot of people, a couple of 100,000 sitting in and around Hamilton City itself. And then you've got the balance of the population spread right across the region in a bunch of small communities. On the face of it, if representation was simply based on a per capita perspective, you would create an environment where Hamilton might override the decision making of the rest of the region. And I'm certainly not suggesting that's anybody's intent, but it's one of the tensions that's being worked through. How do you make sure that smaller communities of interest still have representation? And when you think about our own district environment, we have exactly that same challenge when we talk about the population based in the Taupo urban area, and we have a ward system which enables representation and that voice at this table from other smaller parts of the community. So that's a work on, and it's certainly top of mind for all of the councils who are involved.
Thank you, Nick. We just need to move along. But so, Councillor Foreman.
Kia ora, Nick. Just in our previous workshop with DIA, they said they would continually talk to us if other things popped up, and whether or not we were a part of various options. Have they had any clear communications with us in that space?
I think DIA is quite busy at the moment, so
So no.
the communications have perhaps not been as fulsome as we would have hoped at the start, but we're chipping away.
Councillor Leonard.
Thank you. I guess semi-supplementary to Councillor Mananui's questioning. I know that we'll have it somewhere in the details, but off the top of your head, do you know the population through Aotearoa, Waitomo and South Waikato?
Yeah.
Just interesting to think about, just following your answer around population demographics.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we've definitely got that written down somewhere on a piece of paper. So if we can't come to it during this meeting, we'll certainly come back to you with that. But what we are doing also is starting to compile a bit of a picture of those different districts that we might partner with, just so you've got an understanding of things like, wow, that's a lot of numbers, Sarah. You might need to drive that for me. I deal in words, not numbers. But we're starting to compile a bit of a picture, so you've got more of a feel about what sort of land area and population and main centres and sort of that rural-urban split and key industries, those sorts of things that will hopefully help give you a sense of what our neighbouring councils are like. And just while Sarah's getting that organised, another point that I probably haven't made enough is the fact that we sit in 4 different regions. We're reasonably unique in that regard. And while a lot of our focus tends to go towards the Waikato from an environmental perspective, because most of our region and our population sits in the Waikato region, we also have a foot in the Hawke's Bay and quite a large foot in the Bay of Plenty as well, and then a little bit sitting in the Manawatu Horizons. Now that's relevant because it means that changes to where we sit impact councils in those other regions as well. So it's a more complicated picture for us than a lot of other councils, which
Thank
makes
you,
it a
Nick.
little
Can we
bit
go to
challenging.
Councillor Woodward?
Thank you, Chair. Just back to the conversation before about representation and numbers. I did a little calculation myself, and if we were looking at the Taupo South Waikato, Waitomo, Ruapehu and Aotearoa region, you've got about 44 councillors for that size of a region currently, with the councils that we currently have. So 44 is actually quite a lot. And if you looked at reducing that quite heavily, then you would say have perhaps 12 to 14 councillors for that region. I don't know if government is going to accept that, and that is things that we need to do in our detail as well. So I just thought I would offer that information, and then on top of that you would still have your mayor and then local boards hopefully as well.
Thank you, Councillor Woodward. Did you want to?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Leonard, would you please repeat the councils you want? Do you want them individually?
I was just interested from Nick's perspective when he mentioned a couple of things. It just triggered my questioning around representation. So if we were, I know our total population, but looking to, one of our options was Waitomo, Aotearoa, South Waikato. I was just interested what the population was in those three. I'm aware of Rotorua because they're knocking on the door and I know what that looks like.
So South Waikato has about 26,000 population. Aotearoa 10,700. This is from Stats New Zealand. Waitomo 9,950. So jointly that would roughly just over double our population. But then if you add Ruapehu in the mix, that's about 13,500. But Ruapehu is similar to us in the fact that they have more proportional rating units to population because there's a lot of non-permanent residents.
I did have another question I had my button on for if
Go
I'm
ahead.
allowed. Thank you, through the Mayor. You just mentioned, Nick, and that stirred another question for me, that we cross over multiple regional councils. Are you aware if anyone has suggested splitting us up and taking the chunks out that way? I'm not wanting that, but I'm just...
Boundary adjustments have been subtly suggested in the guidance document from the Department of Internal Affairs, but as far as I'm aware, most of the conversations are focused on district councils amalgamating based on their current boundaries. The one area where that possibly shifts is we put up a couple of models that were based on catchments. So you've got districts like South Waikato and Rotorua, which have got substantial portions sitting in two different catchments. Now, neither of those councils, as far as I'm aware, are particularly excited about being carved up in terms of a catchment-based unitary authority going forward.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, and sorry, just following up, I think that goes to the challenge around deliverability that the government has.
Councillor Woodward, did you have a question? You had to, not any longer. Good. We are getting a bit pushed for time.
I'll be very quick. 2 slides, a couple of key points. This slide just talks about the time frame up till the 9th of August. The key thing is our next milestone is the 21st of July, where we're going to be asking you to make a decision. That will be a complicated decision because, as Julie says, there are a number of other councils who will be making decisions in and around the same time, but not at the same time. So that means that we'll need to think about how do we frame that up so you've got the flexibility to be able to adjust given what they might decide. And that may be in terms of preference. We'd rather go with A, but if A doesn't work, then B, and then B doesn't work, then C. And then this slide just provides a whole lot of detail around the process post-Cabinet making a decision in September. So as I mentioned earlier, there is a lot of design work that's then required between October and March 27 to sort out all the detail about how the organisations would come together to form these new unitaries. We should not undersell the amount of work that is. It is very substantial in a pretty small window. And that goes to the government's point that they make at the start of their Head Start policy document. This is a process that's aimed at all councils who are well progressed and ready to roll and are aligned and organised.
Thank you, Nick. Are there any questions? Because we do need to move on.
Yeah, sure. I've got one question. We are named in other people's ideas. We have our own ideas. Presumably those 2 scenarios go forward to the government. What happens then?
Bearing in mind that our proposal to the government needs to have at least 2 councils on board. So we can't have another council just going off and saying, well, we're going to amalgamate with Taupō. without us being on board.
So if we reject a council and say, actually, we don't want to go with you, then they can't put that proposal forward with us included.
The only time that becomes more challenging is if there are a number of councils involved and we are in the minority in terms of the number of councils. So let's say there are 5 councils who wanted to amalgamate, and we were the one who said, nah, we don't want to play with you guys. Then that could be overridden. And then the second scenario is when we're in the minority of population. So again, if you had 5 councils and they collectively had more population than Taupō District, then we could be included in their proposal. I think that goes back to the challenge of deliverability as well, though, in that the government's looking for amalgamation proposals that have a high chance of success. And if you've got multiple councils or a lot of the population who are anti that change, then that's less likely to be deliverable in the very short timeframes that they've got.
Councillor Foreman.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to apologise because I know you don't have a glass ball, but it's a question that keeps popping up when I'm having conversations is how will this be affected with elections if government changes?
It could all turn on its head, potentially. If we have a different makeup of government, or the new government has a different set of priorities, then they could choose to slow down the process, they could choose to alter the process, or they could choose to stop the process altogether.
Thank you, Nick.
Apologies, I appreciate we're short on time, so I want to be quick, but the reason that we put those slides up about where Taupō is named in other councils' investigations is to speak to, it might not be us that puts forward a proposal, we may have to respond to being in a proposal by another party. So we might say, actually sit back, forget about it, wait for Head Start, but we have to, as staff, be investigating where Taupō is named in other people's proposal. So that's just a particular difference in the nuance for us, so just highlighting that.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really important point, because even if you get to the point on the 21st of July where you decide not to put in a proposal for whatever reason, there is still the opportunity to advocate to government for what you think a good solution would look like.
Thank you, Nick. Councillor Westerman, I'm aware that we've got some recommendations we need to get up.
One. Are we limited to one, or can we go option A, option B?
I'll speak to that if I can, at least my own opinion. As I've heard DIA officials saying they would prefer not to be in the position where they are having to make the call, and I guess I would be asking whether council wants to put government in a position where they wish to make the call. You know, I guess this is about if we take on board the message from the Minister, which is do this process or it will be done to you, putting multiple options or multiple proposals in is potentially inviting government to make that decision for you.
So we do have some options and we need to move on and debate these, and for those with the iPads or the public with hard copies, it's page 12 of the options.
Are we in discussion time?
Yeah, we need the recommendation to go. Oh, do you have a question, Councillor?
Oh, are we getting recommendations up onto the screen? Yep, and then I would have something to say. That isn't a
But you had a question for her,
No, I don't have a
okay.
question. I suppose I do have a question, and while they're getting those up, if I may, Chair, sort of, I suppose it's to take us into the next section. We've heard public feedback, we've heard about our 4 options, we've heard about the priorities from central government that we need to be keeping in mind. I just wondered, before we go into discussion, if we can get clarity from the CEO or the Mayor or the best person as to what success would look like at the end of this meeting. So what are we actually trying to, as a council, achieve? Are we trying to narrow from 4 to 1 or 2? Are we happy to go ahead with 4? Just some clarity before we discuss could be useful.
Thank you, Councillor. There's 4 options that have been whittled down from some of the criteria that we've looked at. And ideally, it would be good to get to 1, but practically we'll probably 2. Less than 4 is what we want to do, because then we've got to do a deep dive into it to discover all the stuff and analyse it. Julie, did you want to?
Yeah, so just perhaps just highlighting the purpose of the paper which is in front of us, which is about giving staff direction about where you want us to go and spend our time. We are looking for the 4, or the paper is suggesting that you direct staff to go and look at those 4 options, and to be able to assess them both on financial, non-financial criteria, and to come back to you on the 21st of July. So we are suggesting those 4 options are things that you want to go and seek staff to work further on. I guess that's clear for everybody that's watching. We're not making a decision today on what is preferred. We're seeking staff guidance on where you want us to spend our time.
Councillor Mananui.
Would it make sense then to start with option 4, i.e. the backstop? No.
We're deciding on.
So the paper as it's written, and it might be helpful if we just look at the resolution that's up there on the screen now, so that everyone can follow along, is seeking for council to direct officers or staff or us to go and weigh and do some further assessment on options. And there is no preference given today, but to seek your support to do all 4 of those options. So that's the first resolution.
Thanks. Are we in debate now? Okay. Thanks for the presentation, Nick. I just want to be clear, these are my views. Any option that makes Taupō a subordinate is not the best position to be in. And I am not convinced that we would be able to maintain local voice in that type of structure. So that's the first part. Under option, I think it's B on the screen, the C&I option, TDC has an opportunity to lead the formation of a new Central North Island Unitary Authority covering the volcanic plateau. Rather than attaching TDC to someone else's regional framework like Waikato, Bay of Plenty or Hamilton Centric Mega Council, the footprint made up of Taupō, South Waikato, Ruapehu, Waitomo and Otorohanga would have a combined population of around 103,000 and a combined land area of circa 20,000 square kilometres, which is actually larger than Greater Wellington, and built around Lake Taupō, the Waikato headwaters, Tongariro National Park and the geothermal corridor. Every other option places us inside of an existing regional frame designed for someone else's geography. This option inverts the logic and asks what governance boundary actually makes sense for the Central Plateau. It is quite ambitious, and I have spoken about this option previously around the council table, but I would like this council to be ambitious, and I would like for us to conduct the deep dive analysis to determine whether that ambition is actually viable under the C&I option. So today that's my preferred position. I would like for us to conduct that deep dive analysis under the C&I option. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Moots. Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, look, I just think that central government have made an absolute blue here. They've put us in a no-win situation with the timeframes, with the process, but we have an obligation, I think, and a duty of care to our district to put our best foot forward. So I'm in favour of the resolution as it stands, because I think there's a benefit in looking at what will work in those scenarios for our district, localism, finances, assets, all of that. But there's also a benefit in investigating what won't work, so that when we are named in a proposal, we have that information at hand. I also think that by the time we get this together and it gets to central government and there's an imminent election, that we'll be back to the drawing board anyway. So I think we do have a really good opportunity, as Wahine says, to look at all these options and look at what will work for us just as much as what won't. So I'll be voting in favour of the recommendation, albeit I would very much like to include in any proposal how opposed we are to this process and the speed at which the government's been expecting us to move. We aren't able to listen to our communities in this timeframe and in this process, which I think is absolutely appalling. And I want to make that really clear in our proposal, that we would have been a better option to discuss with them what works for us, how we can find efficiencies. This is leading very, very much to centralisation where nobody's going to have a say. So I'd very much like our proposal to have all of the information about what works, what doesn't, and how opposed we are to this process.
Well, yeah, look, I just want to point out, I do actually think this whole thing is an opportunity to improve matters, as disruptive as it is. But I mean, some advantages I see of option A being part of the larger Waikato region, and is hard to put a number on. I think if we were part of a Waikato super region, would be increased advocacy to central government, sort of like Super City Auckland has, and increased access to an increased gene pool of professional staff. I think those would be advantages with being part of a much larger organisation and not just semi-small. And I think whether that's going to be better or not, no matter what amalgamation option we have, the devil in the detail of the design of the local boards and their responsibilities and their delegated authorities, that will be crucial, because I mean, we've got a ward system in here, but we haven't even got community boards. I don't think we're as functional, nearly as functional, even if we are small, as we should be for these smaller areas. And also crucial negotiation points, arguably, ring fencing debt, because some of these other councils have much more substantial debt than we are, and if it just gets spread evenly over the place, that might not be so fair. We've got our TEL fund. We want to keep that to ourselves, please. And I just want to say one thing on the option D, which is do not submit a Head Start proposal. Prepare for backstop. I don't think that should be as simple as sitting back and waiting for things to happen. I think that option should include, and this is a very reasonable, as I was pointing out just earlier, a reasonably practicable option is to submit our own. Under Part 3 of the Local Government Act, there is a process where you can submit to become a standalone unitary council. You can choose to partner up with a neighbouring council, but if we choose not to do the Head Start proposal, then we should be actively choosing to follow that process, which is a much more methodical and time-consuming process, but it does involve actual meaningful consultation with the community, because I don't think that has not happened, and it's hardly possible to happen in the number of weeks we've had. And it could actually, believe it or not, be wrapped up in time for the October election in 2028, before backstop consequences would kick in. So
Councillor Campbell, would you mind if we heard from some of the others, like Councillor Taylor?
No, yeah, I've finished.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. First of all, thanks, Nick, for your presentation, and thank you to the members of the public who are here. It's great to see so many people. I want to speak completely in support of everything that Councillor Murch and Councillor Cameron have said. I totally agree with that. A couple of comments I would make. There are other areas around us in regions that, if I look at the feedback, have said do not go there. Tauranga was mentioned quite vociferously as being don't go there. There are also other regions like that were completely ignored, so I'd have to assume we don't want to go there either. It's like Palmerston North or Whanganui, for example. So I'd rule them out. When I look at option B, which is the smaller councils around us, that gives us an opportunity to be in like-minded, like-sized councils. When I look at also the DIA advice that we were given, it is around proportionality. So big numbers win the day. None of those councils, apart from maybe us, have a monopoly on numbers. We go with Rotorua, there's a big number. You go with Hamilton or Waipa, there's a big number. I'd also speak to the backstop. The mayoral forum I attended on behalf of you, Mayor John and Rotorua, DIA were really clear. You don't submit a Head Start, or you're not included in a Head Start, you'll be left off to the side until we get round to you, was pretty much the message. That is not a position we want to be in, and that does not serve our ratepayers particularly well. So I'm in favour of the motion. I look forward to the deep dive staff are able to do on our behalf, and I look forward to further conversations on this at our next meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Woodward, followed by Councillor Leonard.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I certainly support deep diving into further options. We certainly need to look further, but I am slightly disappointed that we don't have the option on there to push back, and it is a difficult option, and I realise that not all councils are thinking that way, but there are certainly councils that are thinking that way, and we've had other councils that have written to central government already to express how frustrated they are with the process. So I'm a little bit disappointed that we haven't even attempted to look down that route ourselves. And if we had a little bit more time, which I understand is from central, we could be working with other councils better. And on that note, I also wonder if regional engagement had been more interactive and open, such as joint workshops, minutes of discussions, if that would have helped better to shape the outcome as well, or something that we could potentially look at doing down the road as we do more information. The survey, again, just on that one, there was a very reoccurring theme of trust in there. So sort of similar to what Councillor Campbell has voiced a few times. We do have a few issues within our council, as do other councils, and that was apparent in the survey. The reoccurring themes, not about the amalgamation, but just in regards to our council, were themes of overstaffed, overspending, unnecessary spending, high wages, lack of transparency, lack of accountability, poor use of consultants and contractors, high cost, and we need to stick to our core services. So amalgamation could help with that, as long as we are making sure that we shape it.
Thank you, Councillor Woodward. Councillor Leonard.
This is just a request. This is post the paper being prepared. The New Zealand Initiative has put out an embargoed email today till tomorrow, but just their key points that are in there, Nick, if we could, as part of this, incorporate that. And also something I pondered about last night was in 1989 we had a catchment-based system which got rid of, assets were divided up, who kept and who sold. If we could get some kind of an idea across the relationships that we're looking in here as to what happened historically, because that may give us an indication around relationships moving forward. It was certainly the impetus of the Taupō District and the Taupō Borough Council which have set us up for where we are today, and it would just be interesting to understand some of the past of these councils and their previous behaviours at the last combination that came through. Just I think would be good, and I'm in support of the 4 suggestions that we have here to explore further. So thank you for your prep.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. Councillor Foreman, followed by Councillor Greenslade.
Yeah, totally support looking at these options for the same reasons that Wahine and Rachel pointed out. We do need the information in case we are put into other options we don't like, effectively. But 9D, I do wonder, since we're not getting any information on the backstop until March 27, from what DIA has said, is there any point, and would it be more of a better use of staff's time to look at why our community has said this isn't the greatest process, so we can include that in our proposal instead? Just a thought.
Thank you, Councillor Foreman. Councillor Greenslade.
Thank you, Worship. one of the things that's happened around this council table is that councillors have a much greater knowledge of the geography of the district now. And when you look at the Taupō District and you see that we have 9 councils backing onto us, for us it's probably been one of the greatest challenges, I would say, in the country, actually. I think that Councillor Murch's argument is excellent. I would thoroughly support what she's talking about. I think one of the things that we talked about in going forward was communities of interest and our economic areas and how we align with other councils. And I think that if we look at those options and option B, and our communities have a look at option B as well too, and make themselves familiar with the areas that we're actually talking about. I support the resolution, but I would like to say that perhaps not so much time is spent on those ones that are coming across as less favourable to councillors, not wasting too much time on those ones that are, yes, exactly.
Thank you, Councillor Greenslade. Councillor Campbell, we are running short on time.
Yes, I'll be quick. I'll talk quickly.
Thank you.
Well, I'll try not to. Look, I'll just point out the backstop option. Okay, I won't call it fear-mongering because our government should be feared. But as the law currently stands, just because the government says something and that this is what they want, that doesn't mean that's what they will get. And this legal advice from Simpson and Grierson was pointing out the Fitzgerald versus Muldoon classic case of that happening. The Local Government Act, as it stands right now, does give us protection against being tossed to the wind with someone else's proposal or lumped in with here or there if we haven't talked to our community about it and got their buy-in. So the law as it currently stands gives us some protection. And just point out that this New Zealand Initiative publication, just out, called Head Start Done Right, is very much worth a read. There are some systemic problems with local government, this place, and just making it bigger is not necessarily going to make it much better. It might make some things better, but I think anyone out there get a hold and have a read.
Thank you, Councillor. We have a recommendation on the screen, which is someone prepared. It seems to be a common theme here. Is anyone prepared to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Birch. Any further debate needed on this?
Through the chair, I was just going to say, supplementary to the suggestions that we don't look at all these options fully or don't look at the backstop. I disagree wholeheartedly with that. I think we need all the information we can get, including backstop, because that's actually what our community wants. They don't want us to rush into this, so we need to investigate it.
Can I please add as well, just in the criteria, we haven't got rural priorities, unless I missed it on there, and particularly if we are looking, a lot of the councillors around the table were quite happy with option B here. We are deep diving into all of them, but with option B, it is a very rural community, so can we ensure that those priorities are on our criteria?
It is in the criteria list. It is
Sorry.
written in there.
Which one does it? Is it?
No, if you go back through the paper and
On
what
this
the
one?
staff are clarified to consider as options when they're considering these options, it specifically mentions rural in there.
Yeah, just number 3 there, is it on there? Because it's got our urban growth priorities are met, but I don't see the rural.
Okay, we have a motion there.
Cool, ignored.
We need to move on. I tend to put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. The motion is carried. We have another part to this, part 2. Can everyone read that? The council notes that Taupō District Council has been named and various options also been investigated by other councils in the Waikato and Bay of Plenty, and that we may need to respond to those as part of the assessment process. Someone like to move that?
Can I ask a question, Your Worship, please? I don't actually understand what that means.
We need a move. Need a mover first, Councillor Murch. you want to move that? Is there a seconder for that? We'll come back to that shortly. Councillor Leonard, thank you. So you have a question, or you want
I don't understand what it means.
May I clarify?
Yes, please.
Through you, Your Worship, it's simply acknowledging that staff may have to spend time over and above the 4 that you've just passed a resolution on, responding to other options that are being put forward by other councils. So
Well, the point is, if they are not options that we've chosen to look at, why are we responding other than to say that they are not options that we're considering?
I'm very mindful you're in debate, but simply because we could be named in someone's proposal when it's submitted, and we need to advise you whether you wish to support it or not.
So any further debate on this? If not, we'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Noted, Councillor Greenslade. So we're in favour of that. And we have yet a third one.
Through the chair, if it's okay, I'm just taking on board Councillor Woodward's suggestion of rural, and I'm just wondering if this is the area, Councillor Woodward, where you were wanting to see rural included? Thank you. Sorry, my point being, this is your opportunity to add something in.
Yeah, so my question was, is there anything in this criteria to ensure rural representation and voice, and if there's not, can we please add it in there?
Nick, please go ahead.
I understand exactly what you're saying. I think we were inherently thinking about rural issues at the same time that we were thinking about these criteria. But if you want to be explicit, and I can see the value in being explicit, then perhaps H is the one where you could change it to our urban growth and rural priorities are met, so we are not held back. That might be the easiest place to include that.
Is the mover and seconder happy with that?
I'm happy to move, Your Worship.
Councillor Murch, are you happy to second that? Any further debate needed on that? If not,
Through the chair, just observation pointing out. I mean, all these priorities, as we call them, as I see it, unless I'm missing something, are devil of the detail issues which would be questionable, well, to be questioned and challenged no matter who we're amalgamating with. So, yeah, it's the devil in detail which will address those questions. I'm not expressing myself very well here, but I'd like to see if they are going to address that sort of thing in a holistic way, address the issues I just brought up about the advantages of a much larger entity having better representation to central government and access to bigger gene pool of staff, and I'm not sure how that mixes in there. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
thank you, Councillor Campbell. Can we have a mover for this part? Move. Oh, that's already been done. So, any further debate needed? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you for that. Well, Nick, well, you look poised, but we've narrowed down a lot of work for the team to actually work through. But thank you for your time here. Do we do a closing character?
We've got the meeting this afternoon, we can carry it through.
Yeah, so we do have a meeting this afternoon, so we'll leave karakia following that.
Through you, Your Worship, if I just a brief comment?
Please go ahead.
So if you don't mind, just to address the public gallery, as I acknowledged before, the number of people that are here, what I would say, and for those who are listening online, I know that many of you will have lots of questions and lots of concerns. There are 13 of us, including the Mayor, sitting around this table at the moment. Can I encourage you all to make approaches and ask your questions at your liberty? No question too difficult. Feel free to engage. That's what we're here for. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Well, that is the end of it for today, folks. We have another meeting starting at 1 p.m.